Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we pot up some lettuce seedlings. So let's go. I'll put a link to the video where together we sowed some lettuce seedlings. And that was on December 23rd. Today is January 2nd, so it's been 10 days. And as a reminder, I did not place the lettuce seeds that we sowed onto a heat mat because they do better without the additional heat. I did, however, keep the humidity dome on top of this container until I saw about 75 to 80% germination. Once I saw germination, I did remove the cover. I did not need to do any additional bottom watering. However, if I had noticed that the seed starting mix was starting to dry out, then I definitely could have bottom watered the seedlings because this container does have holes in it. Even though I am growing these lettuce plants for the purpose of harvesting indoors, if you are growing lettuce for the purpose of planting outside, what I'll do is pop up on the screen how many weeks before your average last frost date you want to start lettuce seeds. I will start fertilizing these seedlings in a few weeks, but not today. What I will be using is liquid fish emulsion. You want to use a fertilizer that is high in nitrogen because after all, lettuce are very leafy plants. Also, the other thing you want to keep in mind is since lettuce is made up of a lot of water, you want to make sure that your lettuce plants are not drying out. You want to give them plenty of water. I had great luck with my lettuce germination. It only took 10 days for the plants to look like what they look like now, and you'll notice that they actually are starting to get their first set of true leaves. The first set of leaves that come on a plant are called the cotyledons. After those leaves appear, the first set of what's called true leaves appear. And that's very important to know when you're starting seeds because a lot of times you don't want to fertilize plants until at least the first set of true leaves have appeared. As I mentioned in my previous video, I prefer to sow many seeds in a container and then prick them out. But if you wanted to, you could definitely start your seeds in a bigger container, something like this, or even something like this. Notice they're both 6-cell packs, but this one's a little bit larger than this one. You could even start your seeds in something like this. This is more of a 3-inch pot. It really comes down to how many times you want to pot up a plant. It also comes down to how much space you have under your grow lights. For me, I like planting my seeds in containers like this. I enjoy the process of potting them up. I will pot them up into this size container next, and then after that, I will pot these seedlings into a container this big. And then in a number of weeks when my plants have gotten much bigger, I will end up potting them up into this container. And that's as big of a container as these plants will go into. When it comes to potting up these seedlings, you can use either potting mix or seed starting mix. Normally I would use potting mix at this time, but I haven't made up a fresh batch of potting mix. So for right now, I'm going to use seed starting mix, but the next time I pot up my seedlings, I'll definitely use potting mix. What I have here is some DIY seed starting mix that I made myself. It's basically 2 parts of peat moss. You could use 2 parts of coco coir if you want instead, to 1 part of vermiculite and a pinch of dolomite lime. But you can also buy your own seed starting or potting mix. It's really up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill up the 6-cell pack. This seed starting mix has been pre-moistened. And what I had done was when I made up my mix, I put boiling hot water on this seed starting mix. And I mixed the boiling hot water in, and then I covered this pot. And the reason I added boiling hot water was I wanted to kill off the possibility of any fungus gnat eggs that might be in my seed starting mix. And what I'm doing is I'm just pressing down lightly on the seed starting mix. Regardless of whatever you use, potting mix or seed starting mix, you do want to press down because you're trying to eliminate any sort of air pockets. However, you don't want to press down too hard because if you do that, you're compacting the soil, and what will happen is the roots don't have enough space or enough room to grow. So you want to make sure that it's pressed down just enough but not too hard. If any of you have been following me for any length of time, this pen might look familiar to you. You can really use whatever you want. I'm basically trying to prick out my seedlings. There are things called dibbers out there that you can use. You can use a pencil, any sort of tool that will help you basically prick out or pull out your seedling from one container to be able to move it into another container. So what I'm going to do is create small holes here. The reason that I am making these little holes here is I want it to be much easier when I transplant my seedling from here to there so that I could put the roots right in there. Whenever you handle seedlings, you don't ever want to handle them by their roots or by the stem of the plant, because if you were to break off the stem part, then the plant is pretty much dead. So you want to make sure that you're always handling your seedlings by a leaf. So I'm just going to get right under here to gently remove the seedling from here. And I want you to see for how little the seedling is, check out the roots on it. That's why we made the holes, so we can get those roots right into each of those holes. So you can see that I'm guiding the roots right into this little hole here, but I'm also carefully using the back of the pen to push the roots in. And now I can go ahead and backfill just to get that plant to be a little sturdier. And I'm going to do the same process. I'm just removing this little seedling. And again, you can see it has a lot of roots there. It's amazing how many roots are formed from one little seedling in just a short period of time. What I tell a lot of people is it's pretty easy to get a seed to germinate, and it gets a little harder as time goes on caring for that plant. But with the proper amount of attention and care, it is possible for us to have great, beautiful gardens, but we just have to be patient with our little plants, our little seedlings. And that's why I don't like to just rush the process and put everything in a big, huge pot. Because personally, I think plants do better when their house or their little home starts off small and progressively gets bigger. I feel like you can pay a lot more attention to your little seedling that way. So I want to show you something here. With this seedling, its roots are actually in a big piece of, it looks like peat moss. So what I'm going to do is just try to be very careful to try to remove some of the peat moss from the roots. And I don't want to disturb this too much more, so I can just go ahead and make the hole bigger just to put this in. A lot of times I use the back of the pen just to push down or tamp down on the potting mix or the seed starting mix that I'm using. And when I eventually put up to the potting mix, what's nice about that is it will have what's called perlite. It's like those, they look like styrofoam balls. And what's great about those is that that really allows for water, for good water drainage. In seed starting mix, there's a lot of vermiculite, and vermiculite is great for retaining the water or water retention. And that's very important when you're first starting your seeds. It helps so that the seed starting mix doesn't dry out. And sometimes you'll find some potting mixes that have a little bit of vermiculite and a little bit of perlite. And if you are wanting to make your own potting mix or seed starting mix, I say go for it. You're going to find a lot of different formulas, a lot of different recipes out there. And I've looked at a lot of those and I've just kind of played around with it over time. And whatever recipe I've been using, I've been successful with. And you might be using a different one or trying a different one, and you might be equally as successful. I think that's what makes gardening great. So you can see we pricked out all the seedlings here, which is great. There were 6. So I'm going to go ahead and actually take this label, and I'm going to put this label over here, just because we want to know what our different plants are. And I will end up pricking out the rest of these and doing the same exact process as we just did. What we're looking at here is a small little toaster oven pan that I have. It's pretty shallow, but you can see I've put water in it. I like to use any sort of pan that I have that can hold at least 1 inch of water so that I can water my plants. I could use something like this. I have a larger pan like this one, I can use something like this. And these are just things that I already had on hand. A lot of times if you go to the dollar store, you can even get a very cheap pan that you can use for bottom watering, like a tin foil pan or even a plastic pan. The key thing here is you want to make sure you're always bottom watering your seedlings. You don't ever want to be watering from the top. If you do that, that can cause a lot of different issues, including fungal disease, dampening off, all sorts of bad things. You want to get in the habit of bottom watering your seedling. Now, the seed starting mix is already wet. What I like to do normally is I would wait for the seed starting mix to look a light brown color. That tells me that it's drying out, and then I would bottom water it at that time. And when I eventually start fertilizing these guys with my liquid fish emulsion, I'm going to be doing the same process. I'll be adding fertilizer to my water. I'll do that in a separate video and I'll show you how I do that. But I will be bottom watering with fertilizer as well. And what's nice about bottom watering is when you're all done, you can remove your cell pack and you can do other cell packs in the same container that you're using for bottom watering. And then when I have excess water like this, what I do is I just pour this into a watering can and I reuse it at a different time. That way you're not wasting any water, and you're definitely not wasting good water that has nice fertilizer in it. And then all of my potted up lettuce seedlings will go in this 10 by 20 tray, and I'm placing them under my LED shop lights. I do have a video that talks more about my shop lights, and I'll put that down in the description below, just in case you're wondering about the timer and everything else about the grow light system that I have. And that's it. I just wanted to make this short and sweet video that shows you how to pot up lettuce seedlings that are about 10 days old, and my process for also bottom watering them. I'll definitely make update videos showing you what's next in terms of giving them fertilizer and potting them up again into another bigger container. And I hope that you're able to grow some lettuce as well, and maybe you're following along with this process. It's so much fun to grow your own lettuce. You save a lot of money actually, and you can enjoy nice fresh lettuce. I'm going to be enjoying these plants indoors during the winter months, but come springtime, I'm also going to have plants that I'm going to be putting outside in pots and containers. Let me know if you're growing any lettuce indoors for the winter, or are you starting some lettuce plants that you're then going to transplant outside? I'd love to hear from you. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.